Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you to our sponsors, the Kilby Apartments, built by Toll Brothers, who chose Frisco to open up their very first apartment community. Yet another example of the future of Frisco and progress in motion. I'm really excited tonight. I have a special guest with me. Shanthi Rajaram is here tonight, and I'd like to do just a little bit of an introduction of Shanthi. Shanti's lived in Frisco for 15 years. She has 2 kids in the Frisco ISD. She's a technology entrepreneur, and she owns the company Amazic Solutions. She's the president of Dallas-Fort Worth Alliance for Technology and Women, and she also sits on the board of the Frisco Chamber of Commerce. So welcome tonight, Shanthi.
Thank you so much, Angelia, for this conversation.
Well, I'm looking forward to just hearing some questions that you have for me, and so I'm just going to throw it over to you.
I would, more than question, I would like to get your thoughts based on your experience as diversity and inclusion officer. And you see city of Frisco is growing like crazy. We have so many people moving into city, and it's becoming like a melting pot of all kinds of culture. So I want to know, what is your vision towards being more equitable and inclusive of all the different people that are moving in?
Yeah, that's a really good question. In fact, that's one of the priorities that I have for the campaign, Shanthi. And you know, it's interesting because, as you mentioned, Frisco is incredibly diverse. About 40% of our residents are people of color, much like you and I. So it's a very diverse community, and I think it's important for everyone who is a part of Frisco to feel like Frisco is home to them, and everyone to feel as though they belong and their voices are being heard. And I think that a part of doing that is to ensure that we embrace celebrations that people of different backgrounds think are important to their particular culture. And so I'm excited that Frisco celebrated Diwali. Earlier this year, we celebrated Kwanzaa. And I think the more we can look at celebrations, the more we can ensure that we invite everyone to the table and to share their voices and to show that everyone is a part of this great city. So I think even when we look at things like videos that we put out that we share with future corporations and future residents, let's ensure those videos reflect the diversity that exists within our city. And so I think a part of what I'd like to do is just to ensure that everything that we do as a city runs through this filter of ensuring that everyone is represented, both visually as well as vocally in terms of hearing their voices. So I think it's about representation. Representation matters in our city. And one of the opportunities that I think we have is you look at our council and you look at even some of the city leadership, and we don't have that representation. And that sends a message to residents, not necessarily a big message, but it's a subtle message that says, okay, we need to ensure that we have representation of folks who look like us in city leadership positions. So that's also a really big, important part of why I'd like to put my name in the hat for that, because I want the residents of Frisco to know that their voices matter and that representation matters. So I think that was a really great question. I'm excited about that.
Thank you for stepping up. I mean, we have all been here. We see the city grow and we want to do something, but it's a totally different ballgame, stepping up and, trying to serve.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Having said that, something that is common between you and me is we are both entrepreneurs. You made a successful move from being in corporate and now coming into, being in this small business world. Especially the last year has been very hard for many of us, especially women in business.
Yes.
What has your learnings, what have been your learnings in the last year that you think you bring to table as part of city leadership that you can change to help other women and other business owners?
Yeah, so that's a really important question. One of the lessons I've learned as an entrepreneur this past year with COVID is to be nimble. And to constantly be reinventing yourself. So my company focuses heavily on executive coaching and leadership development, and a small part of what I offered was diversity, equity, and inclusion. Well, during this past year, the demand for executive coaching and even leadership development really kind of turned on its head, especially in-person leadership development. And yet diversity and inclusion became an even bigger offering because of the social unrest that we experienced in our country. So I had to be pretty nimble very quickly and say, okay, while my executive coaching component kind of put on the shelf a little bit during COVID, really amped up my diversity, equity, and inclusion offering, as well as starting to do leadership development via Zoom, which is, something I think we have all kind of come to know and love. So as opposed to just doing training in person, we started doing a lot of the training on Zoom, and even a lot of the executive consultation that I do, and I would normally do that in a face-to-face setting. Those became also offerings that became very visible on Teams and Zoom and some of those other electronic options. So yeah, I think being very flexible, being very nimble, also being very strategic and thinking long-term, not knowing where COVID was going to take us. And so trying to figure out, okay, what's the long-term sustainable option for my business? And then, like I said, I think the other piece of that is just really learning how to be flexible and turn on a dime. So those were some of my learnings, and I think those are some of the things that I would bring to City Council as well, as just being strategic, being nimble, learning how to reinvent myself. Those are things that I think are transferable skills that would help me on the council.
Perfect. I think, I don't know how you do it with family and kids, and now adding this on top of it. Good luck to you, and looking forward to your leadership, and good luck for your run.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Shanthi, for being here tonight with us. This has been an incredible conversation. I'm really excited to have you here. Are there any other parting words that you'd like to share before we wrap up for tonight?
I think many of us know that I'm a great supporter for women in technology, women in business. And when women step up, I'm always there to support them and make sure they're successful. So kudos to you for taking the first step. We are all here to support you and make sure you're successful.
Well, thank you. That means a lot to me. So I really appreciate that. And thank you for being here tonight. You have a wonderful evening and stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you so much.